So now let's look into some examples on how to do input. Now this output, as we all know, is to communicate something to the user. Okay, input is in order to do a specific code or to do a particular operation. You will usually need some sort of input going into the code. So the way that we can get input is by using your input statement, just like print. Input statement is just like this. So if you run this code, so I'm going to again comment this out. So you notice that this time it's not printing this directly, but it's just waiting here. That's because of my input statement here. Whenever I put input, it is waiting for some sort of input from me. So I can type in anything. And then you notice it moves to the next line, and then it prints out this output. So what's exactly happening at this point? You notice that it stops the program at that point and it waits for the user to key in something. So it's up to the programmer to make it useful so that the user knows what they're supposed to input. So let me comment this out. So for example, if I want someone to enter their name, okay, so I don't want these also. Sorry, let's comment out these things. Okay, so now I want to input the name. I can say enter your name. So whatever is given within the quotation mark is going to be printed as it is. So you will notice that here. See, now it's still waiting for my input, but at least it's telling me what I'm supposed to do. So whatever you put in the parenthesis after the input statement is basically printed on the screen as instruction for the user so that they know what they're supposed to enter. So here they're asking me to enter a name, so let me just enter a name. So I'm going to just enter Alex, and then the program ends here. Why? Because there's no other code. Now, where is this name getting stored? Is it even getting stored anywhere? No, obviously, because we are not storing it anywhere. We are not asking it to put it inside any particular variable. So to make it more useful, you have to store all your inputs in a variable. And now, as we know, you should give meaningful names. So I'm just going to give the variable name as name equal to input, enter your name. So what happens now? Run the code, same thing, it's asking me to enter a name. I'm just going to enter it, and the program ends. Again, same output, but the only difference in this case is now it has been stored in this variable. And we have already seen that once you have the name stored somewhere, it's easy to just print it out, right? All you need to do is just put print and then put the variable name where you've stored it. So now when I run this code, it'll ask you for the name. Let's give Peter this time, and you see Peter gets printed. And in your code, you've not used any name called Peter. It's all coming from the user input, and it's just getting printed out. Okay, so same thing you can do with numbers. So you can just say number, input, enter our number. So you could just do this. Let's say 45. It'll print 45. Okay, so these are examples of how to use input statement and store the value in a variable and then print out the value from that variable. So one key thing that you need to note here is that whenever you use input statements, now both of these number and name or alphabets works, right? So how do you know what's the data type of your variable here? So you can use the function called type. So you can just say type of number. So this will tell me what is the data type of this input that the user has given. So it says class string. That means even though 45 is a number, Python is considering it as a string because of the input statement. So if you want to do any numerical operation on these numbers, you should put an int either here or before the place where you're going to use it as a number. Okay, so what int does is basically convert whatever input the user is giving it will convert it to an integer. So you can run this and then you will see that now whatever number I give has been converted to integer. So either you can do it at this point, or instead of doing it here, you could also do it in the place where you're going to do your operation. For example, let's say I'm going to get two numbers from the user. Okay, so I'm going to put it as number 1, and then I'm going to put it as number 2. Okay, so now if I want to just add these two numbers, I would say number 1 plus number 2. Now we know that number 1 and number 2, I'm not converting it to integers, which means they're still strings. So what happens when you add two strings? So enter a number, let me give 10, enter another number 20. You notice your output is 10, 20, 1, 0, 2, 0. So it's not really performing a mathematical operation here, but it's just pasting these two things together in the order that you're pasting them. So it's like strings are usually just pasted together. It's called string concatenation. So you're just putting the strings next to each other. Okay, so in cases where you actually want to do numerical operations, you'll have to convert this into int values. So that's when you can do int number 1 and then int number 2. And then now if you do your operation, you notice that your answer will be a numerical value, which is 30. Okay, so this int, you can either do it at the place where you're doing your mathematical operation, or you could do it when you're getting your input. And you could also convert 1 to integer, and similarly you can also convert it to a float according to your requirement. So I'm going to just type in again 10, 30 maybe, and you notice when you add a integer number and a float number, your answer is given out as a float number. Okay, so these are the ways that you can get input from the user, and you can apply it into your code and then change the type of the variable according to your requirement. Right. Thanks for watching. I'll get back with another video soon.